fought beyond 6 rounds, and that might tell if this fight goes that far. So Mercer in the white trunks against this white hope from Kansas City, Morrison, and Mercer well behind now after 2 rounds. He's shown no signs that he's going to get into this fight. And the mouth of Mercer very clearly damaged. Mercer really has done nothing so far. He's been very immobile. He's taken most of what Morrison has thrown. He's picked up damage to the face, and now he's getting another working over. Morrison picking every shot he wants and finding the target. And Mercer is in bad trouble. Left hand. Everything Morrison throws seems to get through, but the former Olympic champion, Ray Mercer, is taking these shots, and one keeps thinking back to his last fight against that Italian, Francesco Damiani, when he fought 8.5 rounds and was miles behind on every judge's card, and then produced one uppercut which smashed into the Italian's nose, laid him on the floor, and he didn't beat the count. That's the right hand there from Mercer. That's the first reasonable right hand he's thrown. Round 3. All Morrison so far. But just a little sign here that Mercer's beginning to put a few punches together. There was that good right, and now he's trying to get the jab going. Moving around a bit now too, Mercer. He's not standing still anymore, which he was in the first couple of rounds. He's now moving and jabbing. So a very, very slight change in the pattern. He's making himself a much more difficult target now. He's letting Morrison chase him. But for a change, he's not letting Morrison hit him. Another right hand from Mercer. And suddenly he looks like a different fighter. And he's nodding to his corner as much to say, yep, I think I'm beginning to understand what this is all about. But not before time. The first 2 rounds were bad for him. And part of this 3rd round was bad for him when Morrison went with these sort of punches again. And that right uppercut again almost took him apart. Well, at that point in the 3rd round, it looked as though things were drawing to an end for Mercer, but one has to say that he came through it. And that was one of the right hands that rather changed the pattern of the fight towards the end of the 3rd. Donald Trump, and this fight is being sponsored by Trump Plaza, one of his hotels. Fourth round. Now, have we seen a subtle shift in this fight? It was all Morrison for 2.5 rounds, but towards the end of the 3rd, Mercer, in the white trunks, began to look as though he actually knew what he was doing. Both these men have had their succession of pushovers in being built up. But recently, Mercer's fought a much better class of opponent, and he's beginning to go to work here. And this is a different Ray Mercer, suddenly. Mercer's never been a skillful fighter, but he's certainly been a courageous one. and he rather trades on that. Morrison again trying to get those combination punches, the quick hooks to the body and then the uppercut. Trying to get those to work again, but it's quite as sharp as it was earlier. And all the time he's beginning to get hit very hard indeed around the head. And the general feeling before this fight was that if Morrison was going to win this, he would have to win it fairly early on. And he hasn't. And Mercer's beginning to look extremely dangerous. This is an entirely different Mercer from the man we watched in the first 2 rounds. Almost as though he fell asleep at the start of this fight, but has woken up. Mercer his man, getting off the ropes. He wasn't doing that earlier. And Morrison's work, you'll notice, is now beginning to look very ragged. It doesn't have the crispness of the earlier work. He's throwing punches, but they're not really getting through. And all the time, Mercer's finding his head and blocking the punches now. Different fight. And suddenly, the odds, I think, have switched in Mercer's favor. That was a very different 4th round from the ones we saw earlier. And Mercer lifts his arms and seeks the crowd's applause, which he gets, and knows that this fight has taken an entirely different turn in this corner now, beginning to get a little anxious about the damage around the eyes.
We got to go low. Use the body. It means you have to change your levels. Relax. Keep it close. You got to change your levels. You got to follow up with your punches. Right? What you're trying to do is you're letting him throw first, and then you're covering while he's in too tight. You can't throw this.
So that corner now beginning to ask for different tactics from Morrison. They want him to go for the body. Exactly the thing that Mercer's corner were asking for earlier. That was a tremendous thumping, 2 thumping right hands to the head of Morrison in that 4th round. So they're coming out for the 5th. Now then, will Morrison follow orders and go for the body? No, he's still shooting for the head. And Mercer looks so confident now compared with earlier on when he looked as though he was heading for defeat. And there's that right hand again smashing through, and it's all coming through against Morrison now. And this looks like the end to me. It could be stopped right here, and it is. Maybe not stopped quite early enough, because Morrison was taking too many punches. And after 28 seconds of round 5, Ray Mercer has successfully defended his WBO title. That's not important. What is significant is that the white hope of American heavyweight boxing, Tommy Morrison, has been shown up in this fight. He hasn't quite got it at this level, and Mercer put him through the mill here in the closing moments of this fight in the 5th round. But I wish the referee had come in a little earlier. He's looking quite unconcerned, the referee, at this point, and the man is suffering, and there are at least half a dozen blows he shouldn't have taken. So Morrison beaten for the first time in his life. Mercer is still unbeaten and is clearly perhaps going on to meet Lennox Lewis or maybe Larry Holmes.